Well, g'day curd nerds. Today we're going to be making Petit Chili Brie. So this is a modification of my Fake Camembert or stabilised paste washed curd cheese, which is kind of what a lot of commercial cheesemakers make their camemberts like. It's the same sort of process. You would have seen in the Fake Camembert video that the cheeses turned out absolutely fantastic. They were a little bit salty, so I've eased back on the brining time for these ones, and I've added in chili flakes into the curds, and I've also added the water that I rehydrated the chili flakes with into the milk to start with. Now, it's going to turn out, well, I hope it's going to turn out into a delightful little cheese. We won't know that until the taste test video, which will be in about 4 to 6 weeks. We'll see how that goes. I've just got to test the little buggers for firmness. If it starts to get a little bit squishy in the middle, then I'll know that it's ready to eat. Anyway, they're all wrapped up, ready to go into the kitchen fridge for their maturation time at 4 degrees Celsius or 39 Fahrenheit. So let's see how I made Petit Chili Brie. So as always, don't forget to sanitize your equipment. I'm boiling the stainless steel utensils there that I'm using today. And for the plastic molds, I have washed them in hot soapy water and I have sprayed them all with vinegar and letting them dry off. Now the milk I'm using today is Inglenook Dairy's full cream unhomogenized milk. It's a lovely milk, great for cheese making. So the ingredients for this cheese is 4 litres or 4 quarts of whole cow's milk, 1/32 of a teaspoon of Floridanica or Sacco MO36R aromatic mesophilic, 1/32 of a teaspoon of thermophilic culture, you can use any, it's no big deal, 1/32 of a teaspoon of Penicillium candidum, 1/64 of a teaspoon of Geotrichum candidum, 1/4 of a teaspoon or 1.25 millilitres of calcium chloride diluted in 1/4 of a cup of non-chlorinated water, 10 drops or 0.5 millilitres of single strength rennet diluted in 1/4 of a cup of non-chlorinated water, an 18% brine solution, and 1 tablespoon of chili flakes of your choice in 1 cup of non-chlorinated water. So give your milk a stir and start heating it to 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm just heating it initially on the stove top, then I'll transfer it over to my sink where I've got the sous vide heated up the water, and that will maintain it during the cheese making process. Now there's a little bit too much water in there, so I'm just taking some out so the pot doesn't float, and then just putting the plug back in again. So just giving that a quick stir, checking the temperature. And it's a little bit on the low side, so I'm going to pop the lid on it and move on to the next part of the chili brie process. So over on the stove top, I've got my 1 tablespoon of chili, and I add those flakes and the 1 cup of water to a small saucepan. So we're simply going to rehydrate or sanitize those chili flakes. So we're going to bring that to the boil, and then we're going to simmer that for 10 minutes, and that should impart some colour and flavour into the water, as well as get rid of any yeasts or moulds that could have been on the chilies by the boiling. So just turn that off and then strain into a bowl and retain both the water and the chili flakes. So let that water cool off. We're going to use it in the process in a minute. Get the last of all those chili flakes out. I want them in my chili brie. Okay, so the water should, the milk should be up to the correct temperature now. And it's fairly close, 34, 1 degree off, that'll heat up. Probably need to turn the sous vide up probably a degree above the target temperature I want of the milk. But first of all, we're going to add the Flora Danica. Just sprinkle that over the top of the milk. Then we're going to add the thermophilic starter culture. And then we're going to add the 2 moulds, the Penicillium candidum and the Geotrichum candidum. Now allow that to rehydrate for 5 minutes. And then stir in the cultures and moulds into the milk. So once they're stirred in, add the chili water to the milk and give that a good stir. The milk will change colour slightly, but that's no big deal at all. Pop the lid on. And we're going to allow the milk to ripen for 3 hours. So start making this cheese early in the morning. So just giving that a quick stir to incorporate the cream back into the milk. Just check the temperature, and yep, it's nearly spot on, which is great. You can see I've got the sous vide set at 36 degrees, so it's above. Now we just check the pH. It should be between 6.2 and 6. So just checking it there. And it's not quite low enough, so it's at 6.4 according to the test strip. So I'm going to leave it for another 20 minutes before I test it again. Let those starter cultures acidify the milk a little bit better. This is how we ensure a stabilised paste. So just giving that a stir again. We're going to check the pH of the milk again. Using the test strip, and it's changed colour, so it's about 6.2, which is perfect. So I'm going to proceed on with the process. So just check the temperature. Make sure it's ready to go. Yep, 35 or pretty close. There we go, perfect. So just turn that down a little bit so it doesn't creep up. So we're going to add the calcium chloride to the milk now. This ensures you get a firm curd set when you're using pasteurised milk. So give that a good stir. And now we're going to add the rennet to the milk. So just give that a stir, but no more than 1 minute. Now I'm not doing the flocculation method for this cheese because I've made this recipe before and I know that it's an accurate timing. So allow the milk to set for 45 minutes. And then once 45 minutes has elapsed, we are going to check for a clean break. I'll just put the knife in, turn it sideways, and if it splits cleanly, which it does, that's perfect. So I'm going to cut the curds into 1.25 centimetre or half-inch cubes, just doing the horizontals with the curd harp there, and using the curd knife to do the vertical cuts. Try to cut the curds as evenly as you can, this will help in the long run. Pop the lid on, and we're going to let those heal for 5 minutes. So you can see the curds have sunk a little bit there, which is a good sign. So what we're going to do now is stir the curds every 10 minutes for 3 repetitions. We're only stirring for about a minute. We don't want to expel too much whey. So this is the first time. Don't want to expel too much whey because we want this to be a fairly soft cheese. So 10 minutes later, this is the second time. You can see more whey has been expelled. Notice I'm keeping it at the target temperature of 35 Celsius during the whole process. And then this is the third time, or thrice. There we go, just a gentle stir to prevent it from matting together. So I'm going to allow the curds to settle now for 10 minutes. And meanwhile, heat up 1.5 litres or 1.5 quarts of water to the same temperature, 35 Celsius or 95 Fahrenheit. Now we're going to use a ladle and a sieve. We're going to remove 1.5 litres or 1.5 quarts of whey. Just using a measuring jug to gauge that. And then just replace that whey with the water that you've heated up. Just before you do that though, give it a gentle stir because this stops it from matting as you pour the water in. So give that a stir now. And stir for about 30 seconds, just to stop things from matting together. The temperature's about right, it'll stay warm as I keep the sous vide in there. So cover that and rest for 10 minutes. And then stir for another 30 seconds. And then cover that back up again. Now cover and let that rest for 30 minutes. Now that should have all sunk to the bottom. So we're going to dip out the whey to the level of the curds this time. Remove it from the heat. I've just unplugged it and all the water's drained out. And I've turned the sous vide off and just remove that from the workspace. So to prevent the curds from matting, give them a quick stir. So still a bit of whey in there, but that's okay. And now I'm going to add the chili flakes into the curds. So I'm going to mill them in with the curds. So add them in and mix the chilies well. Now I found that a tablespoon of chili flakes was just right for this cheese. I don't think you want any more, unless you want it really hot, of course. But then you can just use hotter chili flakes. So good stir through. And now we're ready to put the curds into the moulds. Now initially I used 4 10 centimetre or 4-inch moulds. But I may have overstirred the curds because they had shrunk quite a bit. And I found that I didn't have as much curds as I thought I did. But we can fix that later on. So we're going to let these drain now for 1 hour. So after an hour, we're just going to flip the cheese 3 times in 5 hours. So they're fairly firm because of this process. Just take them out of the mould and flip them over. It's the easiest way to do it. That way you'll get a smooth surface on the bottom of the cheese as well as the top. So flipping them over, a thought came to mind, looking how small they were after that 1 hour of draining. And I came to a decision point about now. So mine were too small, so what I chose to do was combine 2 to make 1. So I took it out of the basket and popped the 2 rough surfaces together. There we go. And then I gave them a bit of a press. Had a look at the height and I thought, yeah, that's okay. After the draining, they should be fairly good. So just press them firmly to combine the two layers together. And as it drains, they will knit together anyway. That's what curds do. So just firmly on top. Just placing a mat over the top, keep any beasties off during draining. So that was the second, that's the second flipping. So the layers stuck together successfully, so that was a good sign. So I just turned them over. And they're looking about the right height that I was after. Perfect. So this is the final flipping. So I've been flipping for 5 hours, draining and flipping for 5 hours. And the cheese is the perfect height that I wanted for these chili bries. Okay, so after that 5 hours has elapsed, we're going to remove the cheese from the moulds. And instead of using my normal brining bucket, I find these smaller cheeses don't brine very well in the brining bucket. I'm just going to use my maturation box and pour the brine. This is a fresh batch that I made earlier in the day. And you can check out my brining video here. So I poured that in, and I'm going to place the 2 chili bries into the brine. Now there's not enough brine in there, and luckily I had some in a bottle, so I'll top that up. We're going to brine it for 2 to 3 hours depending on how salty you want them. So now that they're floating, that's a good sign. Sprinkle a layer of salt on the top surface and turn after an hour of brining time, and then repeat the salting. And then let it go for 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours. This just ensures that maximum salt is absorbed during that time. So I chose 2 hours of brining time. I think the initial recipe was like 6 hours and they were just way too salty. Alrighty, so once the brining time has elapsed, then remove the cheeses from the brine and place them on a mat. Just move those out of the way. I'm just going to save this brine because we can use it for our next cheese. So it has got a few chili flakes in it, so I'm just using a sieve to filter those out. And then I'll store that in my cheese fridge at 13 degrees Celsius. So just give the ripening box a bit of a wipe out after I used it with the brine with some paper towel. And now we're going to pop the chili bries back into the ripening box. Allow those to air dry uncovered for 24 hours, and I turned them about every 6 hours. Just pop a little umbrella on top of that, keep any flies or dust or what have you off of the cheese. 24 hours seemed to be enough, so these were touch dry. There we go, nice umbrella. So cover and ripen in a cheese fridge at 11 Celsius or 52 Fahrenheit at 90% humidity until they're coated with the white mould. So I turned them every 2 days and have so religiously during the cheese making process. Don't worry too much about those holes, you can see that the mould grows over. It takes about 14 to 21 days for a full mould covering. And there they are. Just a little bit of a flip. Now we make sure we flip them or turn them those every 2 days to stop them from sticking on the mat. If you neglect them, the mould grows through the mat and you are going to tear the rind of the cheese. Okay, looking lovely. I think that's a fair coating. I think I left it for about another 2 days before I started to wrap the cheese. So once they're fully coated and you're happy with the surface of the cheeses, we're going to wrap each cheese in micro perforated cheese wrap, which you can get readily available from most good cheese making suppliers. Now here's my attempt at wrapping the first one. Yep, I'm not very good at this. Bit of a dog's breakfast, really. Oh, the agony. I'm also terrible at wrapping gifts, as you can probably figure out here. I promise I'll do the next one much better. Anyway, once you've got it wrapped, then fasten it with a single piece of tape. Put that one aside and then wrap the next one. So I figured out how to do it. You take opposite corners. There we go, look at that. Then just tuck the sides in, fold it over and do the same. Half the time it took to do the first one. There we go. Stick a bit of tape on and squish the sides in. Nice, all done. Couldn't have done it better myself. Ta-da! Okay, so what we're going to do now is ripen it further now that they're wrapped. I've just cleaned out my ripening box, popped the 2 wrapped chili brie in there, and now we're going to ripen them at 4 degrees Celsius or 39 Fahrenheit in your kitchen fridge for 4 to 6 weeks until they're soft to press in the middle. Anyway, back to Gav. So as you can see, the process was not very different from the Fake Camembert. I wanted to make this stabilised paste cheese again because I really enjoyed the flavour, and I jumped at the chance because Kim, my lovely wife, told me she really enjoyed a chili brie that's made by, I think it's Unicorn brand here in Australia. A lovely little cheese, and I could tell by the structure of it that it was a stabilised paste style cheese. So I set out to make it, and hopefully we'll soon know in the taste test whether I've achieved that. I do believe that it looks pretty good, certainly from the photos and just studying the cheese with the white mould all over it before I wrapped it. I don't think it'll have too many problems with aging. Anyway, thanks for watching, Curd Nerds. As always, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so and ring that little bell, and you'll get notified of other cheesy content that I produce. Well, if you want to buy the kit to make this, you could either buy the specialty cheese kit, which is on the website, or the Camembert kit. Well, thanks for watching, Curd Nerds, and I will see you next time.